Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, Browns Raiders preview edition, a matchup between 2 and 8 football teams in Las Vegas. Full preview pod coming your way. We're going to talk about what we're watching for on Sunday. Lance Reisland is going to give you his scouting report, and then we'll come back and we'll make our picks in the final part of the pod. So let's get to it. I mean, I don't even think we need to pretend here and be cute about it, Mary Kay. We all know what we're watching on Sunday. We all know the reason that people are going to be tuning into this football game at 4:05 on Sunday, and what is kind of a boring slate of 4 o'clock games. So this one, I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this for one reason, and that is Shedeur Sanders, maybe the most famous, the 5th-round pick that gets the most attention that we've seen in a long time. It is Shedeur week. He is making his first start. So let's really kind of focus on that here. What are you expecting from Shedeur Sanders this week?
I'm expecting some really good things and some mistakes. I'm expecting kind of an uneven football game. I'm expecting to see him show off that elite accuracy that we're always talking about, and the fact that he's got really nice ball placement, and receivers love to catch his passes because he makes them so darn catchable. And I even talked to Malachi Corley a little bit about that today and put that in the story that I just wrote. Some of them attribute it to the fact that he's worked out with Tom Brady, and Tom Brady has helped him put that kind of elite touch on the football. And so he does that very well. And I think it's going to serve him well when he gets down into the red zone and the end zone area and he has to throw the ball on the money in the clutch. I think he's going to be able to do that to a degree. But he also has to stay within himself and not go too crazy and not start running around like a chicken with his head cut off and not start taking 11-yard sacks and 14-yard sacks. He can't do that. They're going to blitz him. Max Crosby's going to be coming for him. He's going to be trying to get his hands up. And Shedeur has to stay within himself. And the column that I just wrote basically was about the fact that, and I've said this before, don't try to be legendary in your first NFL start. Don't try to prove to the world that you should not have fallen from the first round to the 5th. Go out and just make incremental improvement over your first game last week versus the Raiders, and then maybe earn yourself another start.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of this game, and, this is all in theory because we did just watch this team lose to the Jets a couple of weeks ago, but the beauty of this game is you don't have to be great at quarterback to win this football game. You don't need your quarterback to throw for 250, 300 yards. You're going to be able to lean on your defense a little bit. We'll see if they'll be able to run the ball against this team or not. Their run defense actually has been okay. Now, when you hear Lance a little later, he's going to talk. He doesn't see it as much on film as in the stats. So I guess we'll see which side wins out there. But hopefully you can maybe get your run game going a little bit. But Ashley, this isn't a game that Shedeur Sanders has to win. Like, just go out there and run the offense. Don't make any bad mistakes. Make a throw or two when you need to. But other than that, I think there's a lot of paths to victory without your quarterback having some amazing game. And then, to Mary Kay's point, just live to see another week.
Yeah, I really think this is one of those games that the Browns defense could win for them. And really, all the Browns defense needs is to be itself, and it needs the offense and the special teams to not be actively working against them and looking like they are trying to lose by especially not protecting the football. So I think that, to me, is also just kind of the path to victory, right? You need Shedeur Sanders to play as clean of a game as possible, to look comfortable out there, to not be going wild, trying to escape pressure out of the back of the pocket, and get some easy completions. On top of it, it would be really nice if, as the game progresses, he and Tommy Rees feel comfortable dialing up more downfield. I do think, based on what we saw on that last drive against the Ravens, that there is some potential there, and maybe more exciting potential than what Dylan Gabriel had brought in that same game, right? So I am very curious to see how they go about this, and I do think protecting the football and relying on your defense is the recipe here.
And I think that's sort of how Shedeur can win people over, in that building. And not that he has to win them over, but, the point I'm getting at is, can he make it so that if there is a mistake on defense, if there is a mistake on special teams, he can make, right? He can make a big play. He can give you an explosive. He can give you something to where if the other team scores 17 points, you actually still have a chance to win the football game. And I think if they can protect him, Mary Kay, if they can just set this up so that it's a little easier for him. We know Jerry Jeudy can get down the field. We know Ced Tillman can get down the field. We've seen Harold Fannin we know these guys can get open down the field, but the Browns just haven't been able to be explosive in the passing game, in large part because of the protection and because of the quarterback. Can Shedeur change that? And if the answer is yes, then the next however many games he gets to start here, they get really interesting. And that's sort of how he goes about making his case to maybe keep this job even beyond this season.
That's right, because here's the thing. That type of accuracy that we're talking about is something that if a quarterback comes into the NFL and does not have that inherently, it takes a while to get that. You can develop it and you can work on it and you can coach inaccuracy out of a quarterback. I've come to discover that over the years. It happened with Josh Allen. And it's happened with others. So you can definitely improve that about yourself. But if you have it naturally, that is such a gift to be able to do that. And you can take some different chances when you have that ability to place the ball like that. So I think if they can get close to the end zone, if they can just get down there, then I think he is going to be able to take some shots and some risks and some chances and throw it up and give his guys a little bit of a chance to see what they can do with it. And because he just throws such a nicely catchable ball, who knows? Maybe there will be more completions there for him. But the thing that he can't do once again is he cannot take those sacks and negative plays. He can't do that. And he can't throw the interceptions. I mean, he's really got to try to stay away from the turnovers, because that's the first thing that will get him back on the bench, is if he's turning the ball over. And he needs to play controlled and within himself. He needs to settle down and settle in as early as he possibly can and feel comfortable and confident so that he's not running around like that and just throwing it up for anybody. So I think game management is going to be important for him, and it's going to be hard because the whole world has such great expectations for him. It's going to be hard for him to go out there and not do too much.
Yeah, and I think to the point of the accuracy too, if we went back to training camp and we listed, and this would be such a sad exercise to do, and we listed the 10 best throws from training camp, a fair amount of them would belong to Shedeur Sanders, because there were throws over the summer that were like, wow, that was special, right? That's what made him so intriguing when we watched him over the summer. That's what made him intriguing in the spring. But the other part of that is the other stuff. And we know that while he has that elite level of accuracy, and that's not going to go anywhere, is the other stuff going to go away, right? Or when he's under pressure and he has to react in those situations, is he going to fall back on those bad habits? That stuff can be really difficult to break. And I feel like Sunday's second half, Ashley, was sort of the entire Shedeur experience. It was everything good. It was everything bad. It was all wrapped into one. And can the Browns figure out how to reduce the bad here and really emphasize the good this week so that we don't get those huge negative plays, so we don't get those interceptions, those near interceptions, all of those things.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's what has made Shedeur Sanders so interesting, going back to when he was a prospect, right? And you see the good, but then you do see the bad. And look, there's this argument of, well, the offensive line at Colorado was bad. I don't think anybody's arguing with that. The question now is, how much have those bad habits impeded him as a quarterback in terms of that trying to escape backwards? But I think with him, and as he continues on in his NFL career, and as he was in the quarterback competition here, those sort of throws are going to be what continue to keep people intrigued by him. And I think you have to minimize, if you're him, enough of those quote unquote bad habits to really win more people over. And that's going to be key. But look, when Mary Kay always talks about these guys' superpowers, those kind of throws are Shedeur Sanders' superpower and his accuracy. That's what he came into the league being good at already. he's got to keep doing that, obviously. But I think now for him and like his development, the most important thing is, has he minimized some of that other stuff that went in the con side of the ledger for him when he was going through the draft process, even.
And that's one of the I keep thinking about this with this football game. So because there can never just be a normal conversation about Shedeur Sanders. I think we have pretty normal conversations about Shedeur Sanders, but there can never just in this greater sporting world be a normal conversation about Shedeur Sanders. And I'm just thinking, like, let's say Sunday, let's say the Browns win the game. Let's say it's because of the defense. Let's say it's because, maybe they get a defensive touchdown and the defense is awesome and they give him great field position. And Shedeur Sanders puts up okay numbers. Maybe he throws a couple of touchdowns in the red zone with good field position. Maybe he makes a couple of those wow throws. Mary Kay, it's going to be so hard to, in the post game and on Monday and all of that stuff, have any sort of like nuanced conversation about how Shedeur Sanders actually played. But I do think, like, listen, win the game, be efficient. It doesn't have to be spectacular. And then we'll move on to next week and let's see what you can do against the 49ers. I really feel like that's what this is about. It's just about what can you do this week? Can you earn another opportunity? And we'll just kind of take this incrementally while everybody on Twitter fights.
That's right. And I think the Browns are pretty excited about what Shedeur Sanders is going to be able to do on Sunday. I think they're giving him things that he feels really confident with and really comfortable with. And I think that they can't wait to see what it looks like because, as I've been saying, in those scout team sessions when he's going against the Browns first team defense, every single day he's making a play or two that makes everybody kind of go, wow. And I think that we're going to see some of those plays. I think we will also see a couple of turnovers. He's probably going to get strip sacked once by Max Crosby, I would think. He's probably going to throw an interception to someone, maybe Max Crosby. But I do think that he's going to have a handful of really nice plays that make people realize why he led the FBS with a 74 completion percentage in 2024. And I think we'll probably also see why he led the FBS with 92 sacks in his last 2 years at Colorado. So I think, again, it will be a bit of a mixed bag with Shedeur, but I believe there will be enough there for fans and for the Browns to kind of get a little bit excited about.
Yeah, and I think, too, the whole idea of just the way this team, I keep thinking about the Denver Broncos. Like, this team, in some ways, almost should have figured out a way to be the Denver Broncos, right? This amazing defense, this amazing defensive line. Now, the Broncos have one of the best O-lines in football, too, and the Browns' offensive line has been an issue all season. But, they just haven't had what they've needed at quarterback, right? Bo Nix has been fine for Denver. People are going to argue about Bo Nix forever, whether he's good or not. That's just going to be his fate, but he's been good enough and they're winning football games and they might win that division and they might make the play. Well, if they win the division, they'll make the playoffs. So they might win that division. They're almost definitely going to make the playoffs, I would think, at this point. And I just keep thinking, man, that's what the Browns could have been in some ways. Like if they just would have gotten something at the quarterback position. And so I just wonder, like, I don't know if Shedeur can be that, Ashley, but I wonder if there is a world where Shedeur can do just enough, bring just enough playmaking at that quarterback position to at least make us think like, man, what could have been if the Browns could have just found this earlier from this spot?
Yeah, and I think if that does happen, it's gonna make some really interesting conversations about this team, this regime, this coaching staff, and their ability to evaluate quarterbacks, right? And there's gonna be a lot of relitigating of that four-man quarterback competition and Shedeur Sanders' place in it. Like, I think either way, it's gonna be an interesting discussion for this team, and I'm kind of fascinated to see how it all plays out. But look, like so far, things haven't gone super great for them, obviously, at that quarterback position in pretty much any capacity, going back through 2020 and the end of the Baker Mayfield era and the Deshaun Watson trade. And then, you bring in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and they were so adamant that he was something. And now Dorian's not even in the league anymore, right? Like all of these things have happened, and it hasn't inspired a ton of confidence. And the way they've handled that quarterback position has not inspired a ton of confidence. Look, we've been talking about this idea of they bring in two vets and they're both traded by week 5. Like, it just seems like nothing has gone according to their own plan. And now I'm wondering, for a couple straight years now, have we seen them, overestimate young quarterbacks in the preseason, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Dylan Gabriel this year, and just hand over the reins too soon. And this is the next step in figuring out how they've evaluated young talent, how they've gone about developing young talent for the first half plus of a season. But either way, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting discussions to be had that maybe are not super positive towards this front office, this coaching staff.
Yeah, and look, it's a leap to say Shedeur Sanders can be that guy. 'Cause, again, 5th-round pick. A lot of teams passed on him. The Browns passed on him a bunch. What you're rolling the dice on here is you're hoping to land like a Brock Purdy like miracle, where you find a guy on day 3 of the draft and he ends up being your guy. And I think, Mary Kay, just to what we've been talking about, that is why this is interesting, because there is enough there. There's enough there to, at least if you really try hard, you can close your eyes and see what it looks like. If Shedeur Sanders, you can see Shedeur Sanders franchise quarterback. If you really look hard, you can see how that looks. But there's also a lot that he has to overcome. And one of the things I was thinking about too is he's such an emotional, like, high energy guy. I think part of it too is this coaching staff has to kind of help him get through some of those, like, maybe he makes that big mistake and he goes to the sideline and he's beating himself up, kind of getting him to just sort of more of a level, more of like a good, bad, whatever. The heart rate kind of stays the same, kind of keep that resting heart rate low. Obviously you love the emotion and you love the swagger, but if you're going to be effective in this league at quarterback, you've got to be able to manage your emotions.
100%. And that was a point that I was going to make a little bit earlier, and I, for whatever reason, never got to it. But I do think that his body language has got to be so much better than what it was in the Ravens game. During the game, after the game, it's got to be better. He's got to exude confidence. We saw the same thing in that preseason finale, where he just had really bad body language on the sidelines when things didn't go his way, and he was begging to get back in the game, and Kevin Stefanski wouldn't let him back in the game. And he's got to be very, very careful of that. Not every drive is going to go his way. Now, some drives might go perfectly fine, but a number of drives are not going to go well. And he's got to go back to that sideline, and he's just got to look at the surface, and he's got to check in with Kevin or Billy Musgrave or whoever else that he can talk to over there. Bailey Zappi's going to be his backup. And he has to pick his head up. He can't have a situation where Myles Garrett has to be picking Shedeur Sanders' chin up off the floor after a drive. This is the big leagues now. You've got to exude confidence. And even if 7 drives don't go well, or in the case of this past game against the Ravens, even if your first 5 drives don't go well, you might be able to pull out the victory on the 6th drive. And that's exactly what happened in the Ravens game. He did what he was supposed to do. He put the ball in the hands of Gage Larvadane with a chance to win that football game. And that's what you want from your starting quarterback. Forget everything that happened before that. If you win the game, that's what you need from your QB. And you must set aside all of those other emotions and not let that show. You can't let them see you sweat. You cannot let the Raiders see them getting to you like that. So he's got to keep his cool. He's got to maintain his composure, both mentally and physically. He's got to look like he's been here before, even though he really hasn't.
Yeah, and I think the other part that goes with that, and I think Joel sort of alluded to this a little bit today when we were talking to him, is he's got to be able to manage, not manage the game as in just take what's there, but he's got to be able to manage from when he steps on the field, getting the play call, getting it into the huddle, all of that stuff, kind of understanding that pacing, setting the tone in that regard. I mean, there was a play on Sunday, and I don't know if it showed up on the TV copy, but he kind of had I think it was a scramble maybe, and he like after the scramble sprinted down the sideline. And then he turned around. There was like this moment, if you were watching him, you could see his body language. It's like, oh, I better run back to the huddle. There was this like, hey, buddy, we got to get the play in. Like, we got 40 seconds. It goes fast. We got to get that play in. So it's some of that stuff too, where he's got to be able to be the guy who's in charge out there on the field. And he certainly doesn't lack for confidence, Ashley, but it's those little things of like, hey, yeah, that was a great play. You want to celebrate, and that's fine. But then that play's coming in from Tommy Rees from upstairs pretty quickly. So you better be ready to get that and relay it and get everybody lined up.
Yeah, Joel Bitonio had that kind of funny anecdote today about when Shedeur first got out there, and Joel's like, hey, like maybe quiet the crowd, because he looked and Shedeur was hyping the crowd up. I think that is just part of his persona and his personality, and that stuff is great, but again, you don't want it to become detrimental throughout the course of the actual game itself. And look, those are things that a rookie is just not going to know until he's in that situation. And it's going to be different this week because they're on the road, it's indoors. Obviously, we've heard them trying to do their simulated crowd noise to get prepared for that. But yeah, it's like those are the kind of things that you get to see Shedeur Sanders' personality. It's not surprising, but you do want to dial it back a little bit now that he at least has a hap's worth of experience and knows, okay, yeah, this is how this works in the big leagues now.
Okay, we're going to take our break. That was our thing to watch, not our things to watch. Shedeur Sanders. We're going to take a break. Lance Reisland is going to join us on the other side with his Raiders scouting report. Then we'll come back and we will make our picks to wrap up the podcast. Welcome back to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, our Browns Raiders preview edition. And now we are joined, as we are every week, by Lance Reisland to look ahead with his scouting report on the Raiders. Lance, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Dan. How are you tonight, buddy?
I'm doing well. Okay, let's start with the Raiders. Let's get into what they do well. What does this 2-8 football team do well?
They're not very good right now on film, and they're just really inconsistent. I would say it sounds kind of silly, but their best phase is definitely special teams, which we've seen can win you some games. So they're pretty decent on special teams. They cover pretty well. Geno Smith can make all the throws. Lockett's good. Trey Tucker's good. They're just so inconsistent. And the problem they have right now is their offensive line. Forsythe, Glaze, Putnam inside. They are really, really struggling in pass protection. I will say this to the Browns fans without hesitation. If you thought some of the Browns tackle play was poor this year, it's much better than the Raiders has been the last 4 games I've watched today alone. So Glaze and Forsythe, really, they're going to have to really help them, or this Browns defensive line will have a field day this week.
Yeah, I mean, is that really what this game comes down to? Is just the strength of this Browns defense, that D line, of course, led by Myles Garrett, but the interior of that line, Mason Graham, Malik Collins, all those guys. Is that what this game comes? If the Browns win this game, is that what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, if you look last week, you watched the Dallas game, you just put it inside on Williams against both guards and centers. He just absolutely dominates. The tackles haven't been very good at all in pass or run. I'll say this about Cam Robinson and even KT Levinson, who's really struggling pass protection. Their run blocking has been better and better and better. And actually, Cam Robinson has had some good looks and some good things. These two tackles really struggle, but inside, I just don't know how they're going to block Malik Collins. He's so dominant, and what Williams was beating him with is Malik Collins and Mason Graham, I think, do better in terms of getting to the edge, using their hands. Quentin Williams is just a really good athlete, but it's going to be a long day for the Raiders. And once again, that's why that's how I keep it. I watch the film. I don't look at records. This matchup between the offensive line, both lines. The movement that they got on the Raiders defensive line is even more impressive. So this is the game the Browns should go win, and hopefully they do.
How has Geno Smith looked, especially compared to what he was doing in Seattle?
Well, he is under fire. So it is really hard. When you talk about a quarterback, got to have pieces around him. Geno Smith's the guy who can make all the throws. I've always liked Geno Smith. I think he's highly underrated. He just has no time. He gets to the top of his drop, and he is under pressure. He was under pressure last week. Like I haven't seen a quarterback be under pressure like he was last week. it's almost like watching a high school or college game where you just see offensive line so overwhelmed that the quarterback can't even finish his drop. And if you get pressure under 2.1, 2.2 in that range, you got no chance as a quarterback. So, I've heard a lot of people talk about Genty not being a very good back. Is he overrated? No, he's not. There's absolutely no blocking and pass protection and absolutely no blocking. When he's making runs, he has some of the best 3 and 5 yard runs I've seen this year. They're not helping him out. They're struggling mightily on that offensive front.
Yeah, we talked to Jim Schwartz today, and he was saying, like, his average is something like 3.7 yards a carry, something like that. But it doesn't look like it when you turn on the film. And that's sort of what you're saying about Genty, it sounds like.
Yeah, so, I'm not really into all the numbers. I've learned from you like how those are important and how coaches use those. But the eye test and what you see. But all I know is that when he's getting hit before he gets rolling, and then he is fighting. I mean, I would say over half his runs, he's getting hit hard before he gets to the line of scrimmage, and he's still getting 3 to 5 sometimes. So I still think he's really talented. Obviously, Trey Tucker, he's a Cleveland area kid out of CBCA, went to Cincinnati. He's got tremendous speed. Lockett's a guy that's good in the slot. Beck's a guy that I liked in the draft last year. You did as well. I remember, kid out of TCU, long kid. So they have some pieces. It is such a struggle with everything they're doing up front, and they're not helping. They don't help those tackles out. The one thing that Kevin I always thought did really well is help the tackles out. They're just leaving poor Forsyth and Glaze out there just to get murdered play after play after play. It's hard to watch.
So obviously Brock Bowers, their big target. Jim Schwartz called him probably the best pass catching tight end in the league right now. He's special. We know that. When you look at the rest of this receiving core, and you mentioned a couple of these names, Lance, their third leading receiver plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So outside of Brock Bowers, who's been hurt this year, it's been, and Trey Tucker is having a nice season, but they don't really have a lot on the outside, it doesn't seem like.
Well, no, this is a tight end. Mayer's pretty good, too. I think Mayer's their second best player on offense besides Genty. He's a really good tight end, kid out of Notre Dame. Even Thomas, their third tight end. They've gotten into some 13 personnel, and I like the Thomas kid, too. So 3 really good tight ends, and they're going to force feed Brock Bowers. He's a guy who can split out. They'll put him in trips. Last week, a lot of times they try to put him out there, especially in the red zone, and actually have him box out. It's not really a jump ball. It's like get down there and box out like you see in basketball, that big body. Excuse me. He runs very well. He does a lot of things very well. The thing that Mayer does too, they got to figure out how they're going to get those 2 guys covered. That's the thing. That's where the Browns have struggled in this defense, and that is why, by far, like you said, Tucker and Lockett and Beck, they're okay. They're solid NFL receivers. But I think I think with Mayer and obviously Brock Bowers and Thomas, it's a pretty good tight end crew. That's what they're best at. Those guys are the best in matchups, whether inside or out.
So let's move to that defensive side of the ball. And of course, it starts with Max Crosby. Look, the scouting report is going to be very clear with Shedeur Sanders. Pressure him, make him move backwards, try and force turnovers when you bring pressure on him, right? Can the Raiders do that?
Well, yeah, Max Crosby's he's a heck of a talent. They're going to have to chip on him. But the guys inside, when you talk about like Butler and Kuntz, they are really, really bad against the run. And the best thing you can do against Max Crosby is run directly at him. Sometimes when you run even to A or B gap to his side, where he gets to use his Euro step and he gets to use his athleticism. What he struggles with the most when you watch him on film is you run directly at that C gap, counter, wide zone. If you could pin and pull, if you could run directly at that C gap, he's undersized and he's not a huge guy. Tyree Wilson's a guy we liked in the draft a couple years ago. He's got some talent, long arms, but this defensive line has been pushed around. Again, rarely do you see the movement. Landon Roberts was a guy out of Miami. I think he's a pretty good guy. White's been around forever with Tampa Bay, so they got. These are guys, this is the defense you can attack both with the run and the pass. This is not, once again, you got to go out and you got to win these games. I know that, but matchups favor the Browns almost at every position. They got to go out and find a way to win this game.
What is Shedeur facing in that secondary?
Well, both guys really struggled with last week with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. But it wasn't, everybody's like, well, the Browns don't have Pickens and CeeDee Lambs, but the Browns run a lot of these routes. They did a really nice job on the levels. They did a really nice job with the quick stuff that I think Shedeur needs to throw. The slant arrows, those double slants, those inside breaking routes. They really struggled covering any of those last week, going back a number of weeks. They're just a guy. They just struggle getting hands on. They're kind of stiff in the hips. Palomau, the safety number 20, he's a guy who's real aggressive. He's pretty solid against the run, but he can be had in the pass game. Roberts and White really can't cover well anymore, so this should be a pretty solid day for Fannin, which gives you that tight end option, the hunt route, arrows, getting the ball out of Shedeur's hands quickly. But this is a secondary, regardless who's in there. They just haven't been able to stay with, especially when they press them. They're okay in off coverage. Press coverage really, really struggled the last 3 weeks.
Anything else we need to know about this Raiders football team? Anything stand out to you before I get your pick? And I mean, you mentioned it. The matchups seem to favor the Browns, but what did we miss? Like, is there anything else that if you're the Raiders, I mean, what are they trying to do to win this football game?
Well, the Raiders, you said it best. They're gonna take away Shedeur's first throw. So you're gonna see lots of press coverage. Now, granted, what I just said though, the idea of Pickens and Lamb, Browns don't have Pickens or Lamb, so I think the Raiders are gonna feel pretty confident that their corners can handle. Kelly and these guys can handle the Browns receivers. So they're going to take away the first option. You're going to see lots of pressure. Then I think you're going to get a mixture of things. I think you're going to get pressure from the Raiders. I think the Browns are going to work on that. So if I'm the Browns, I'm going to go empty because the Browns have not been able to block the blitz. So maybe you can beat the blitz. There's two different ways to do it, right? So you can block it or you can beat it. I think Shedeur Sanders does a pretty good job with that. He did a wonderful job with that at Colorado, the ability to beat the blitz because he never had pass protection at Colorado. So when you're in empty and you go 3 receivers to one side, 2 receivers to the other side, you get a pretty good look at what the picture is because the defense has to honor that. I would say they're going to heat up the Browns. And then, offensively, I think they, this Genty kid, I still think he's a heck of a talent. And I still think they're going to try to establish the run. Now, offensively, the Raiders are going to throw tons of quick screens and they're going to get the ball out to Genty on the edges a ton. Mayer, Bowers, Genty, Trey Tucker, Lockett. That's their run game, is that quick screen game where they get it out of his hands quickly. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make the Browns tackle in space. I'm going to get away inside from this run game. So I don't see him running ball very well against the Browns. But can the Browns get out there and tackle in space against Genty when they try to do his quick screens? If you want to know my honest to God's truth, I think this is a game the Browns should dominate. And if they're a team that's still trying to win football games and they prepare properly, this is a game they'll win.
Okay, so like you said, this is a game you think the Browns should dominate. We're not that far removed from the Browns laying an egg in a game against a team that they certainly should have won against. So how are you feeling going into this game? What's your pick?
Well, it's funny. Everybody said that about the games that you won. Good thing about the NFL is that it doesn't matter week to week. And, I tell everybody there's no film that I watch that is worse than a team that looked like they quit than the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins are playing pretty well right now. So it's week to week. I'm a matchup guy. I got the Browns 21-3. I think they'll get it, possibly a defensive score, or they're going to get some turnovers that's going to create really short fields. This is a really good game for Shedeur Sanders to start. This is an NFL team, though. You got to go out and beat it. But I think the run game with Judkins is really going to put him in some second and manageables that'll really help him get the ball out of his hands and hopefully create some success for him.
Okay, there we go. That is Lance Reisland, his scouting report on the Raiders. Lance joins us every Tuesday and Thursday. And then when we are able to go live, which unfortunately we're not this year with this week with the turnaround at Las Vegas, he joins us on our post-game show as well. So finally, Lance, promote some stuff. I never let you promote stuff. Tell everybody your Twitter. Tell everybody your Instagram. Where can people find Lance Reisland?
I'm on all socials, really just on Instagram, X. It's just at Lance Reisland, LanceReisland. I've had lots of people over the last couple weeks asking questions about what the Browns are doing. And if you have any questions, jump onto social media and ask me some questions. I'll do my best to answer them for you.
There you go. And listen to Lance on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast too. I'll talk to you later, Lance.
Absolutely. See you, bud.
Back on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, preview edition, Browns at Raiders Sunday at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Thanks to Lance Reisland for that scouting report. So it's time for us to make our picks for this game. We were just talking before we hit record. The Browns are averaging 16 points per game, 16.2 points per game. The Raiders averaging 15.5 points per game. So not exactly two high-powered offenses. I did check a little bit ago. The Raiders are actually favored in this game still. It's 3.5-point favorites for the Raiders. So I think they were favored on Sunday night too. So that's interesting. Ashley, you said you would do this. You said you would go first. So lead us off, set the tone. Browns at Raiders.
Oh, look, this game, I've been agonizing all week over how to pick this game. This is 2-8 football teams. We talked about how the loss to the Jets just totally kind of recalibrated what we think is possible week in and week out in terms of you can no longer look at this part of their schedule and say, oh yeah, they should beat this team, they should beat that team, because they should have beaten the New York Jets after they traded their two best defenders away, and the Jets have just been in turmoil all year. So that being said, I've also talked a lot this week about the Browns losing on the road and losing in these West Coast games. They're 0-7 on these long road trips under Kevin Stefanski, including the London game this year. They also have lost 13 straight on the road. The element of the unknown that has been added into this by Shedeur Sanders starting and the potential spark that can be provided, and the fact that I do think things are going to look a bit better, at least with a game plan designed for him, has really made me second guess those numbers. And also, if we want to get a little superstitious here, do you know, Dan, because I've already told this to Mary Kay, do you know when exactly their losing streak on the road started?
Was it the Raiders game last year?
It was. So
Yeah.
wouldn't it be fitting to end it against the Las Vegas Raiders? Maybe they just need to exercise that demon in the same place it started. I don't think it's going to be a particularly pretty game. My pick is largely due to the fact that this Raiders offense is actually, if Browns fans can believe it, scoring fewer points on average than the Cleveland Browns right now. And this Raiders offensive line is not good. Geno Smith has been sacked 27 times and lost 185 yards. I think we're going to be standing here talking about another Myles Garrett 3.5+ sack game. I think there's not going to be a lot of points scored, and I'm getting weird with this score right now. I'm going Browns 12, Raiders 3. And I can tell you how the Browns are going to get 12 points, Dan Labbe. Do you want to hear?
Let's hear it.
Shedeur Sanders, I think, is going to throw a touchdown. I think there's going to be a Shedeur to Gage Larbadan touchdown. I think there's going to be an Andre Schmidt field goal, and I think Myles Garrett is forcing a safety. We're getting a 12.
Second straight week with the safety against the Raiders. Nice. I like it. So we're going to fly all those miles just to watch a 12-3. Is that what you said? 12-3?
I say that. Yeah, but none of this ever makes sense. It's going to be like 45-42 shootout, right?
So I think we're all going to end up sort of on the same page. Obviously I don't know, Mary Kay, if you're going to pick the Browns or not, but I think we're all going to end up in a similar spot based on, for me, it's like, what do I trust most in this football game? I don't trust anything with the Raiders other than I know Max Crosby's an insane person and he'll probably get 2 sacks, 3 sacks, whatever. So that's obviously, let's say, what if 2 of those are strip sacks and one of them becomes a touchdown? That could be a game changer, right? He's got that ability to make a game changing play. I don't trust the Raiders offense. I don't trust the Browns offense. I'm curious about Shedeur Sanders. I want to see Shedeur Sanders. That's one of the things to get excited about in this game is watching Shedeur Sanders, but I sure don't trust it. It could be this amazing start to something big for the Browns, or it could be, I don't think it'll be as bad as this game, but it could be Johnny Manziel's first start against the Bengals. Again, I don't think that's going to happen, but there's so many variables there. But I trust the Browns defense. I just trust them, and I trust that defensive line. And so I'm going to agree with Ashley on this, that I think the defensive line is going to dominate this game. I think this is going to be a big Mason Graham week. I think we finally kind of have, he's been playing really well. He's winning a lot. You see these pass rush win rate charts and all of that. Mason Graham is doing great in all those areas. I think this is the week where he finally I know he has half a sack right now, but this is the week where he really gets on the board. Maybe he gets 2 of them. So I think he'll have a good game. I think that Myles Garrett, like you were saying, Ashley, maybe he'll set the league sack record this week. He'll get 8 sacks and it'll be done, and he'll break the record. But I think he'll have another big game. And so that's kind of what I'm banking on, is this defense kind of carrying the day. You get Shedeur a possession or 2 that starts near the red zone. You get a touchdown like that. So I'm going to say that the Browns win this game against the Raiders 15-6. Let's see how many weird scores we can come up with. I'm going to say 15-6 the Browns win this football game. So, Mary Kay, are you on the same page with us as far as this Browns defense? Where are you at right now? What's your pick?
Well, you guys are forgetting that Kenny Pickett is going to come in and win this game for the Raiders. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something if Kenny Pickett came into this football game and beat the Cleveland Browns? That would be such a Browns thing, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a Browns thing?
I was saying to Ashley earlier today that the Raiders, I can't believe they're not just buying into the script here. Like, they should be starting Kenny Pickett in this football game.
I know.
Right? They really should. I mean, come on, Raiders. Let's spice it up here a little bit and have some fun. But I think it's an interesting matchup. It's an interesting matchup. Dan, you and I were looking at the teams that the Raiders have played this season, and they have the second toughest schedule in the AFC this season. And they have not lost to the Little Sisters of the Poor. They've lost to some really good football teams. Now, granted, they can't score any points, but they are not losing to horrible teams. So they might just be a little bit better than their record indicates. It's tough to say. And Jim Schwartz was saying today that he doesn't think that running back Ashton Genty's statistics tell the story of how well he's playing this season. He thinks he's doing a really, really nice job at running back and breaking some long runs and breaking tackles and doing a nice job there. So we'll have to see if the Browns can stop the run or if they throw anybody else in addition to Genty at them in that way. And then we know about Brock Bowers. So they have some weapons, they have some pieces, and they have played some pretty good football teams. But once again, I still do think that the Browns defense will prevail. I think the Browns defense is going to come through in a very big way. And I just don't think that the Raiders defense are going to be able to handle Myles Garrett in any way, shape, or form. And yes, he's going to come close to breaking that record. I mean, maybe not really, but he's going to add to the sack pile this weekend. 3, 4, again, it's going to be something like that. He's on a holy tear. And I think that's going to continue in Vegas. And also, I think that Shedeur is going to show out a little bit. I think he's going to do a couple of things in this game, maybe not a ton, but a few things in this game that will help them score some points. Now, I think it's going to take maybe a defensive touchdown. It's going to take some takeaways. I think they'll get him. So I'm actually going to go with a little bit of a higher score than I probably should be going with here. But I'm going to go 20 points for the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to say 20 points in Shedeur's debut, aided and assisted by special teams and defense, and 13 points for the Raiders. Browns 20, Raiders 13.
Okay. Doesn't matter how many games they lose on the road. We're going to pick them to beat them. We're going to pick them to win these games on the road. I mean, I didn't actually think about that, Ashley, that, yeah, this road streak started in that weird game in Las Vegas last year. The Nick Harris hold, all of that stuff.
Yeah, 20-16, a 20-16 loss. I didn't even remember the score, but even that score's kind of weird.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here we go. Let's see what happens on Sunday. You know, we'll cover it all at cleveland.com/Browns. Our Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk. Our Twitter's Orange Brown Talk. Our YouTube is Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. And if you're not subscribed to this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, get subscribed. Appreciate Lance for the scouting report earlier. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.